Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Let's hop in here. My ear is clogged up, so everything sounds a little weird today for me, but I think we're good as far as looking at the volumes. Although, in all honesty, I don't know if I wasn't maybe led somewhat astray at some point to turn up the game music or game sound effects, and it's just too loud for most people. All I can do is wait for more feedback to happen, and if somebody says that the game audio is too loud, adjust it. Like, I could certainly make my own opinions on it, and if I was just going to go with my own opinions, I probably would turn the game audio down a little bit, but I pretty much have to just try and go for group feedback. The other thing is that we did like a 50 card plus card pack opening on Monday, and that didn't really seem to lead to any extra views. In fact, it was pretty pathetic. 2 views on Monday. I relabeled it, and obviously if I had started like as soon as the new expansion had come out, as far as videos, there might have been something more to that. The custom thumbnails that I set up for live streams don't seem to be really helping, as much as people constantly emphasize that your YouTube videos get better views if you have custom thumbnails. I think what they really mean by that in a lot of cases, particularly at this point, being April 6th, 2022, I think the only custom thumbnails that really are going to get you more views are heavy into the range of just clickbait thumbnails. And I don't even see a lot of clickbait thumbnails these days. Yeah. So yeah, my hopes have been dashed as far as the new expansion of Yu-Gi-Oh! Getting a bunch of views. I think also we're starting now in the afternoon, and I think afternoon and evenings streams are better than early morning streams. I just don't think early morning streams really benefit. Yeah, we'll go ahead and just receive some crafting points and some gems on the duel pass. You could literally not collect any of these rewards until you make it up to rank 100, and you really wouldn't feel much of a difference there. That's how little the duel pass over its 72-day length is worth. See, and we just need to play a bunch of ranked and maybe get into solo mode. So for the accountability section, which I really feel the need to just leave that at the beginning, but I'll keep it quick today because I can just say I've been playing Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Everything has been going fine, except for every now and then I would get a hitch here and a hitch there when entering new areas in the kind of open world game. Mirror's Edge Catalyst has the graphics set really high, so it's not crazy to think that there would be a second worth of hitch when entering a new area. And it's not consistent hitching, it's not crashing, it's not short-circuiting my RAM. I got my second pair of replacement RAM and put it in the computer just this morning. Weirdly, when I exited Mirror's Edge, Origin said I needed to select a new folder, so I selected a new folder to install apps into, and then my computer locked up. So EA Origin or hard SSD NVMe access caused my computer to lock up. I have no idea. why that would be the case. It almost would sort of make sense that maybe my SSD is getting worn out, but it doesn't have any indication that that's the case. But since that locked up my computer and I needed to reboot my computer anyways, it gave me an opportunity to put the new RAM sticks in, put in a PC speaker so it actually beeps at me. So if I start hearing it beeping because of power issues or overheating issues, at least I now will know about that. It is a little disconcerting that my GPU's fans don't spin. I should also say that it was 80 degrees Fahrenheit when my computer locked up. It was 80 degrees in the room, just incredibly hot in my room for some reason today, and I turned up the air conditioner to adjust for that. The big trick, and I didn't want to pull the plug on this one, so I didn't, is there is a hot fix for OBS that just popped up, and I don't want to install a hot fix for OBS and have the stream completely messed up. I also replaced the yanked out bent up pin cord connector on my third monitor. So we'll see if I continue to see weird flickering in that case. I also turned off the audio signal. Oddly, you could turn off the audio signal through HDMI to one of my TVs and not the other two. Which, okay, that's fine. I'll just turn it off because I don't need it. And maybe that'll save some bandwidth. My third monitor was flickering every now and then. I wonder, though, if I shouldn't make my third monitor also get power from the same outlet. There is a possibility that the power on a plug on one side of a room is connected to the other side of the circuitry than the plug on the other side of the room, so they could be fighting each other as just one being 60 hertz cycle 180 degrees opposite of the other outlet. And generally you would never have a problem where you have multiple devices connecting through multiple connections that might have the voltages reversed because of that. But running a monitor across the room does create that scenario. So it would kind of make some sense to just put the power plug, run it along the same group of plugs back to the computer. But yeah, fingers crossed. A few tweaks here, a few tweaks there. GeForce Experience updating, Windows updates updating, my motherboard drivers for the AMD chipset updating. Like, ideally all of that would be improvements. Is it always improvements when you get new drivers? No. When you have weird things happening, is there any guarantee of fix? No. One of the things that is somewhat concerning me is that I will play all of Mirror's Edge Catalyst and see a few hiccups here and there, but not be able to really attribute it to any to the same problems I've had with my computer before. And as such, I may make all the footage for Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which was fine, but still not really feel confident that everything is fixed. And then I just need to move on to the next game. And I could play the next game and see a few hitches here and there, and it may just be the game again and I may just never be able to regain that confidence that I once had. It's incredibly frustrating that any of this is happening on what is effectively less than 2-year-old computer, basically a brand new computer. But yeah, I really want these problems to become a distant memory. So much so that if I ran into any other problems, I would be confident that it was not related to the current problems. Let's see, do I have anything else to talk about as far as the accountability section? I don't think so. Just Mirror's Edge Catalyst, trying to get my sleep schedule right, which that never really works. I can say Mirror's Edge Catalyst is just increasingly, as I am getting close to the end of the story, it's just not looking like it's particularly that great of a game that compared to even the original Mirror's Edge, and as such I just don't I don't see a large chance that I'm gonna try and spend extra time getting all the collectibles in it or do anything more with it. There's too many characters, and none of, as such, none of the characters are developed enough. The main character you play as, Faith, is not given enough personality at the beginning, and then all of a sudden, near the very end, you start to give her some personality, but it's too little too late by the time, like 75% plus of the story, she wanders around just not really being much of a character. So yeah, what's funny is the story that they're trying to tell in Mirror's Edge Catalyst is the story of a low-level criminal who just got out of prison, who is going to get involved in a much bigger conflict, and for that to matter, you kind of need the character to be interesting throughout that entire experience. It's kind of like that movie Get Shorty or the TV series Get Shorty, that actually quite like that, where there's a character that wants to make a movie and is so desperate to make a movie that he gets involved deeper and deeper into crime. But you start off the TV series of Get Shorty with a father who wants to be a filmmaker who is somewhat of a criminal to start with, but isn't as deep as he gets, and he's trying to be a good father to his daughter. I guess Breaking Bad is probably somewhat like that too. I haven't actually watched Breaking Bad. But yeah, Mirror's Edge Catalyst is not like those stories by any means. Alright, so let's go through the news since we don't have much more. Video Games Chronicles has an article here. Ubisoft says more of its games will get NFTs despite the initial backlash. Man. The reaction to Ghost Recon's Breakpoint's digits was mostly negative. So, yeah, Ubisoft is really doubling down on this, which in a lot of ways I think that does just highlight that Ubisoft only cares about making money at this point, and they don't so much care about maintaining a legacy. And I don't know why they fought so hard to avoid a hostile takeover if they were just gonna go on the NFT bandwagon. And it's not just the NFT bandwagon, really. The jumping off of the initial plan of Assassin's Creed, where Assassin's Creed was supposed to be 3 games, and not even really getting to 3 good games in that format, and then having success on Black Flag, but then not really even sticking with what made Black Flag interesting for the next couple of Assassin's Creed games. The whole annualized concept of Assassin's Creed that went on, that occurred over the course of a decade plus. Like, Ubisoft has always been very much about getting your money over any legacy or any art being created to a fairly large extreme. So there very possibly would have been an alternate universe where Viacom had acquired Ubisoft, and it would have been a much better thing for the games. Or maybe it wouldn't have. Or I don't know if it was Viacom or Vivendi. I think it was actually Vivendi, but whatever. To back up this feeling that they seem to be putting out here, at least they're letting me establish this opinion. Ubisoft is also, according to GameDeveloper.com, making a Tom Clancy Rainbow Six game, which Tom Clancy's legacy is another legacy that has been really ruined as far as the Tom Clancy games becoming just very generic experiences. Like, you look at all these colorful operators and outfits and it looks like they've got magic instead of technology. This really does not feel like this would make sense in a Rainbow Six universe or a Tom Clancy universe. This looks more like a Batman versus the Joker DC comic universe experience just from that screenshot. On top of which, it's a mobile game. And while I do want to see successful mobile games come out at some point, I don't believe that a Rainbow Six mobile game is going to really put in the effort to break the mold and become something that establishes itself as very potentially the world's first good AAA mobile game. Like, it's a sad statement, certainly, to say that there is no such thing as AAA games in the mobile console field. Moving on, I talk about Cyan, the makers of Myst, far too much, but they did kind of go on a bit of a tweet storm. They're trying to win a Webby for a Technical World for a remake of Myst that came out. They're trying to engage you, asking what's the smallest yet expensive open and full of homes fabricated or real, which they're just asking questions for engagement. And then all of that was really just a teaser or a riddle to announce that they have partnered with Mighty Coconut, a company I've never heard of, to develop a game called Walkabout Minigolf Myst, which I assume Walkabout Minigolf already exists. You'd almost think that this would have been an April Fool's Day joke, but it doesn't seem like it is the case. So you're going to have like putt-putt mini-golf style tracks in what is going to be, by now modern standards, a fairly low polygon twist environments of Myst. Although, looking at these screenshots, there isn't a location in Myst that is like this or this. Nowhere in the entire Myst series of games are there environments like this. So it becomes kind of questionable what the Myst version of the game is. You can play Walkabout Mini Golf VR. So this is an overwhelmingly positive VR mini golf putt-putt experience. It definitely is going for some silly environments to make it look interesting. And this actually is on my follow list. So having a spin-off version of this that is set in the Myst universe might be cool for the few handful of people that have VR. But you can't play the game without VR. So you're limited heavily there. And Mighty Coconut hasn't made any other versions of the game. Which it's kind of ironic because while they have brought Myst to VR at least once, if not twice, they still made it playable outside of VR. Or there is at least one version of Myst that is on the same level of graphics as the Myst VR game. So it kind of feels like a step back. I know Valve would never do this, but there is somewhat of an argument to be made where if Valve gave up on caring about VR so much that they required all games that have VR versions to have non-VR versions also. Almost in the same way that I think every TV show and every movie should have a subtitles, which I think you're not 100% legally required to have subtitles, but anything broadcast over TV or airwaves probably requires subtitles. It's really an accessibility issue more than most of the times people say something's an accessibility issue, because there are people with actual problems with their eyes and with their balance and just financially unable to play in VR games. But even if money was no object physically and mentally, there's going to be people that can't play VR games. So there should be non-VR versions of every game out there. Half-Life Alyx, for instance, would sell way more copies if it wasn't a VR exclusive. And it really feels like Half-Life Alyx is probably approaching its 1-year anniversary. It would make a lot of sense for it to come out in a non-VR version. I did hear that Counter-Strike Go in the Source Engine 2 may be close to being released, which might breathe some new life into Counter-Strike Go. Moving on, The Verge has an article here. Apparently Twitter is adding an edit button. I guess it's worth mentioning that Elon Musk is now the most largest shareholder or individual shareholder in Twitter. I think Elon Musk also should probably be investigated yet again by the FTC or FCC or both, because I think he intentionally floated a rumor that he was thinking about making his own Twitter and then bought a bunch of shares of Twitter when that may have shifted the price down on the shares of Twitter. So just stock manipulation stuff. And he's been found legally guilty of doing that before. 15 gems. That's a decent haul, relatively speaking. In all fairness, though, if you'd asked me 2 days ago, did Twitter have an edit button, I would have just sworn that it did. And it's easy enough to delete tweets, so it's easy enough to delete a tweet and then correct the data and post it again. So, not 100% necessary to have an edit button, but helpful nonetheless. Because tweets are still limited to 280 characters or so, it's not like you're going to put a long diatribe or a long paragraph of text anyways, so the amount of misspellings you're going to make is going to be fairly minimal. Let's see. It feels like to me like some of these Video Games Chronicles articles have been republished, or that they were just published late, because we definitely have talked about the Worlds of Tanks developer axing its Russia and Belarus studios, and I suspect that's going to be easier said than done. We've already talked about users stacking PlayStation Now subscriptions, the Fortnite fundraiser netting $144 million for Ukrainian humanitarian efforts. Ron Gilbert coming back to make Return to Monkey Island. Apparently Devolver Digital is going to be involved in this, which means I guess it's not Ron Gilbert's independent company that's going to handle it, or at least solo handle it. Terrible Toy Box, I guess is the name of his company. Alright, here's what we do. We do this. That's gonna give him that. Activate that. That's gonna give him another one. We activate this to summon this. We're gonna send that back and that back. Put that up. Give me back that card. Draw a card. Now let's see how this works. So, activated his feature to get spell counters multiple times. Not that it mattered. I guess what's interesting to say is that Gilbert's second most recent game from the, with his most recent being Thimbleweed Park, was The Cave. And I did feel like The Cave, for the most part, still had a lot of the writing and interesting Monkey Island type experience that you would come to expect from Ron Gilbert. So he hadn't lost it in 2014, which gives you a lot of hope that he hasn't lost it in 2022. I wouldn't be surprised if Thimbleweed Park also has a lot of that same feeling of Monkey Island. It was a very different gameplay style, a different kind of experiment to solve puzzles in the cave compared to a standard Monkey Island style point and click adventure. So it might be a bit of a pivot to go back to that old style. But we'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. Let's see. April's PlayStation Now games have been revealed. Let's see. I wish Video Games Chronicles would make a better list here, or depict these better. Let's see. Outer Wilds, WRC 10 FIFA Rally Championship, Journey to the Savage Planet, and Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood. Nothing particularly interesting. Video Games Chronicle says Netflix reveals the synopsis for Witcher Season 3 as it enters production. Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer enter a battle of political corruption, dark magic, and treachery. It's been so long since I've even watched the first season of Witcher on Netflix. I've kind of forgotten what any of the characters look like. So yeah, that feels a little awkward. Like, I assume this is Ciri. Fine. I mean, you'd basically have to dress Ciri exactly in the same way she looked in Witcher 3 for me to even start to recognize her. She doesn't seem like she has a major scar on her face from the whole Witcher training, which is very possible they haven't even gotten to that point. That's an interesting question. If I show a Netflix trailer, will it get content ID'd by Netflix? Yeah, I pretty much forgotten what this guy looks like. No real telling who these characters are supposed to be. They really do have to just be their own thing. At a certain level, it's kind of like Batman movies. Like, most people probably have a very solid idea in their head of what Batman looks like in the comic books, despite the fact that really Batman has been through probably a dozen different colored suits, and probably close to 100 different artists have drawn Batman in slightly different ways. But when you get to the Batman movies, if it's one person playing Batman versus another, it's like every couple of years there is a completely different Batman with a completely different outfit most of the time, completely different writers. I feel like you definitely are going more in that direction with the Netflix series, where this Geralt is completely different from the games, and probably still a little different even from the books. And if Netflix or some other people were to make a second movie or TV series based on The Witcher with a different actor, I would expect a lot of that to look very different also. On a funny level, The Witcher series might be doing more of a Jim Henson type experience with some of its monsters, going for kind of the labyrinth style puppets characters, instead of going for what you would normally expect, which would just be hyper realistic CGI, which is probably too expensive for a TV series to try and do. We're getting some quick disconnect victories, and I will appreciate that. In general, it feels like we're getting fairly large rewards. Moving on. The Video Games Chronicle says the Switch's latest update introduces Animal Crossing icons and platinum point alerts. I did get an email saying I had earned some platinum points. I don't know what I even did to earn them. And then the email forwarded me to what I could spend the platinum points on, and I found the offerings pretty pathetic. Spending points to get like backgrounds that you should just be able to download for free because they're advertisements, or to get things inside like Animal Crossing, but I don't own Animal Crossing, nor do I really have a lot of interest in playing it, or to use points in Mario Kart Run, which is not a game I really want to play. Not Mario Kart Run, but Mario Run on the cell phones. Yeah, it really wasn't offering a lot to me, which the main thing I would want it to offer me would be points towards downloading NES games. But I think you kind of get those for free if you just pay for the subscription service. So I guess I would want discounts towards the subscription service if it's going to go that way. Let's see. Xbox and the UK's Environment Agency, I don't know which environment agency that would be, have launched a Minecraft mode called Rivercraft. This mode is designed to teach students about climate change, which, okay. It's a little bit more political than the physics being taught. This is that same commercial being shown again. Yep. What's funny is Minecraft, in general, with the Redstone, has like electronic circuit building and programming on the transistor level built into it. And yet, they have come out with two different versions of Minecraft to be educational, and neither version have touched upon that at all. One is more chemistry, now we have climate change. I know kids are obsessed with Minecraft, and the idea of a Minecraft Education Edition is something that still needs to be kind of pushed, but they don't feel like they are really doing much to they're really doing much to actually be educational, and working with an environmental agency to put out what is agenda forwarding messages is probably not educational enough. Like the only agenda here should be to educate as best as possible. It feels very much like having a cook-off, but the cook-off being sponsored by, say, Crisco shortening, so everything has to be baked with Crisco shortening. Well, that doesn't work if somebody has recipes where they want to use lard or butter or something other than Crisco. And there have been bake-offs and cooking competitions like that. Yeah. I still also would suspect that not very many schools are actually engaging with or using Minecraft educational mode at all. That I doubt much is really being done in computer labs these days as far as actually anything more modern or new. I wouldn't be surprised if I went into an elementary school computer lab and saw very similar, if not the exact same software that would have been installed and running when I was in elementary school many, many decades ago. Like, I also wouldn't be surprised if some of the computer labs, if there are even computer lab classes, a lot of times are just allowing people to sit around and watch YouTube or like type things up. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's super boring and they make them just like learn how to use a Word or Excel or something, and they're just typing up paragraphs in boring software like that. Let's see. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says the next Game Pass titles have seemingly leaked on the website, and then the update here is they have confirmed it. So we can just look at the pictures here. You have Dragon Age 2, Garden Warfare, and Rogue Squadron, Cricket 22, MLB The Show, Chinatown Detective Agency, haven't heard of that one, Life is Strange True Colors. Then I don't know what these last three are. I don't recognize those logos. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of these are like cloud only. Some of these are cloud only, at least, which is kind of weird. Panzer Corps 2, or Panzer Corps 2, The Dungeons of Nalubek for PC, and Lost in Random. But Lost in Random is a game that didn't come out that long ago. That's just a couple months. It's just outside of its like 6-week launch window, really. Yep. What's funny here is Video Games Chronicle is using the same videos now a lot more often. Like, this video we've seen used in like 3 different articles that are not particularly related. And I guess maybe she's just the new person in charge, but it would be very weird for her to make the exact same presentation like at the same time, like record 3 different announcements on the same day or on the same set. Yeah, I guess what I'm really saying is, for as dynamically decorated as the set is, it kind of needs to be rearranged for announcements. It needs to be a different set each time. Her being the new person in charge as far as the Xbox Game Pass and streaming also gives me a wondering if they're setting her up to be the new figurehead over to replace Major Nelson, who is going to, I think, end up being trapped in his office dealing with all these businesses he's acquired, or Microsoft has acquired. So we definitely may start seeing a lot more announcements from this new lady, which would kind of suck because I think Major Nelson has succeeded quite well in being a figurehead, and it's nice to see people in charge, or people that at least feel like they're somewhat in charge, actually come out and say something and make announcements, particularly with E3 being completely canceled now, and there being a great argument that it will just never come back. It's gonna, more and more, we're gonna want to see people in charge of game companies find places to make announcements. Let's see. I have to bring this back and spend 800, and that's gonna leave me with 200, and I'm gonna lose. Yep, I can spend 2,000 here, destroy everything, and unless that completely wrecks his strategy. Alright, well, that didn't work. This card didn't activate either. Alright, well. I'm starting to get a little sleepy again, but that's almost to be expected. Days before its release, the first Chrono Cross remastered gameplay has finally been published. Visually, it looks alright, but doesn't look like a brand new game. I think we are definitely starting to see more cases of old games being remastered and still not being quite that good. They definitely feel like they're holding out to make remakes on some games, or they just aren't willing to put in the effort to remake a game properly, so they're just slightly remastering the graphics. In general, I think remaster is gonna fairly quickly become just a dirty word amongst gamers, and that people are gonna just by default roll their eyes at the idea of a remaster over a remake. We already talked about the mobile free-to-play Rainbow Six game, and let's see, the April's PlayStation Plus games are now available to download. A lot of these articles are kind of redundant from Video Games Chronicles. And yeah, I've seen the PlayStation Plus video used multiple times. It definitely feels like they are starting to it definitely feels like they're starting to just do things different at Video Games Chronicles. And maybe that would be the thing that would push me away from using them as a news source, but I really probably wouldn't spend the effort to try and find a replacement either. I've lost my train of thought here. I was gonna say something, and I don't remember what it was. Oh, I was gonna generically complain about the Bombcast this week as being one that I listened to on double speed at least once and then completely forgot everything I heard, and then listened to it a second time and still came off the second time listening to it feeling like they really hadn't said anything. Which is weird because they did say things like the new Lego Star Wars game they talked about, and they seem to love it, but that's about it. They started off the Bombcast talking about WrestleMania and using a shoe authentication service to sell like Nike shoes, and it's just like takes them longer and longer to actually even get in to talk about a video game, and it often seems like it's literally one person out of 4 that's even played the game and has nothing else, and everybody else is just pretending to listen and just trying to sometimes throw in jokes more than anything. But yeah, if I want to listen to a comedy podcast, I'm not going to go with the Giant Bomb remaining crew for that. And even when, like, I was listening to some of the CNET podcast, and on a daily basis, I was just hearing very generic, boring news about like tech things and gadgets. There was better comedy and better conversations happening when that was going on. The 404 podcast was, I believe, the name of it. And that went for a very long time, and it had one of the characters that is in the Bombcast now, and yeah, it still doesn't coalesce that way. Yeah, it's pretty bad, and yet I just cannot quit it. I need to find something else to keep me entertained, or just need to focus on actually making content myself more. Like, what probably would have to happen is that somebody somewhere out there would have to make a video game podcast that is fairly upbeat and just becomes really popular, and then I'd start listening to that as a replacement. And I do listen to several other video game podcasts, but they tend not to be that good, or not have anything to say. A lot of podcasts devolve into just playing games because there's nothing new to say anyways. Like, and nobody is willing to do what I've done, certainly as far as my live streams, and just look at every game that comes out on Steam as a way of having something to talk about. The truth is, there's just not enough video game news that comes out on a weekly basis to have much of a podcast. It should end up somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes of conversation, unless you've got half a dozen people or more on the podcast playing old games, coming back and wanting to talk about that. Yeah, I definitely couldn't make as much content, and I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I couldn't make as much content on my channel if I wasn't playing old games. If I was just trying to play new games, it'd be so easy to have very little to say. It also would be devastating to play new games and then find one you don't like and rage quit on it. Where it's not such a big deal to rage quit on a 10-year-old game that people already have made up their minds on. Moving on back to news, though, Video Games Chronicles says Xbox has revealed a new Kickstart Your Career mentoring program. Registration is open until April 17th. I feel like this is a bad precedent, certainly. I don't believe in using the phrase Kickstart is a smart idea. I don't believe saying that a gaming career where you play as an esports gamer is great. This does seem like this is emphasizing female players heavily. Like, you've got 3 females, you couldn't have thrown 1 male in there. If you're going to make a screenshot like this where it's 3 females, you might as well just say females. It seems like they're just targeting it to young people. Once again, they're using the exact same video. It's just like every single article in Video Games Chronicles now seems to require a video. Yeah, I just don't feel like that's a smart move for Microsoft to go in that direction. Like, it's really questionable whether there will be any major esports players that even exist once this whole pandemic is finally completely gone. China, I think, is back to cracking down on people as far as trying to cut back people infected by the COVID. So, yeah, you're not really timing it very good to introduce the idea of esports players or mentoring esports players. It sounds like you're setting yourself up for a nightmare scenario too, because if one inappropriate mentor exists and shows up in this program, then you've got a scandal associated with Microsoft, and that's fairly dangerous risk for not much reward. This mentorship program couldn't possibly really help more than 100 people, but the bad PR, the downfalls versus the negatives versus the positive could be unlimited. This again feels like this is more of a UK effort, or at least because Video Games Chronicle is more of a UK news source, they are focusing around it being a UK program. Yeah. Let's see. I'm about to concede if I'm not careful, so... Let's see. Moving on, Epic Games has released released Unreal Engine 5 and 2 sample projects. The engine is now available alongside Lyra Starter Game and City Sample, which Unreal Engine 5 has been, I think, available in beta for a while, so it probably isn't the first point of contact for a lot of programmers using Unreal Engine 5. There isn't a major amount of change between Unreal Engine 4 and Unreal Engine 5 either, so like better lighting, better ray tracing, better like tessellations and distance mapping, where the closer to the screen something is, the more textured it is, the further away it is, the less textured it is. The automatic NPC character face generator function is kind of a big deal, but it's really going to be more of the final the underlying bug fixes and improvements and optimizations that can cause improvements compared to Unreal Engine 4, instead of major changes. The major changes from one engine number to another tend to be very few. Big features take a lot of time and a lot of thinking. And it's not like there's major gaps in what game engines offer that can be filled in. The truth of it is that the Unreal Engine will always be a first-person shooter style engine. So the major things that they could add, they probably don't have the resources to add or the interest to add, which would be adding vehicles, cars, helicopters, planes, hoverboats, motorcycles, bicycles, adding all kinds of vehicle physics as more of a overarching package that it's real easy, where they could make it real easy to make a racing game in Unreal Engine 5. That would be a major improvement. But after that, what is the third most popular type of game that comes out? You could probably make an RPG fairly easily with Unreal Engine 5. It might be pretty hard to make a card game, but I do believe Hearthstone was made in Unreal Engine 3 or 4. Top-down board games in Unreal Engine, it'd probably be overkill to make a board game in Unreal Engine. Augmented reality games, I guess, would be a thought, certainly, if you could focus on that. But if you're making an augmented reality game, you definitely are making a mobile game, and the Unreal Engine is not particularly targeting making mobile games. Unity would be better suited for that. Yep. If this was like the 90s, you would have a lot more cases of varieties of the styles of games, but it really isn't like that anymore. So it would be, there might be some room for optimizations around a Metroidvania style game that you tried to make in Unreal Engine. But yeah, Metroidvania, roguelike games, things like that are really going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel if you tried to focus on being able to make that kind of game in Unreal Engine 5. Cartoony looking games, things that don't look like a hyper-realistic first-person shooter experience. Those are some of the types of games that you might try to target if you're going to improve the Unreal Engine. But I just don't think they're going to do any of that. I think Unreal Engine works very well for probably 30% of all the games that are ever released in a year, and that's about as good as it can be. It'd be fairly crazy to try to make a solitaire game or a puzzle game in Unreal Engine, and maybe that would be a thing for them to potentially improve upon and target, is to say, let's put more mini games into it where you do end up playing solitaire, or do a jigsaw puzzle, or play a hidden object game. But if you're just trying to sell something for 69 cents, you're not going to use the Unreal Engine 5 to make a hidden object game and sell it on Steam that way. I played out of order here. Moving on, Crystal Dynamics has, quote, just started developing the next Tomb Raider game with Unreal Engine 5. Quote, our goal is to push the envelope of fidelity, says the franchise's general maker. The new Tomb Raider series actually did a fairly great job on the hair physics on Lara Croft. Otherwise, though, I would say I don't think they really did that much with her as a character or with her gameplay. They turned her into just a generic hero in a generic game, which is kind of a shame because you would have expected more for Lara Croft just because of the name recognition. The actual climbing and parkouring around that Lara Croft does is mostly limited in tombs, in these really small tomb areas, which makes no sense considering the game is called Tomb Raider. You would think she would spend almost all of her time in tombs, and yet they focused on more open world places where you're hunting things with a bow and arrow, which is not even what Lara Croft did. Like, Lara Croft is famous for having her dual, I think they're Beretta guns, in her hot pant holsters, dual holsters while wearing hot pants. So I don't want to go hashtag not my Lara Croft, but you look at this and she's got one gun here. She's wearing long pants, and she would go through what is a fairly linear platforming section here. Honestly, Lara Croft is better off as a dungeon crawler concept, I think, more than an open world collectathon. And this is a teaser trailer for Lara Croft or Tomb Raider Reloaded, which I think this is a new game, but this also looks a lot like the mobile game that I've already played. Did I play this? Coming to mobile in 2021. Did this come out? Let's see. I'm gonna risk it and put this one on the field instead. Are you gonna let me break something or not? I really wish I could just declare an attack and end the turn, because if I just don't care, I should be allowed to just tell it to end the turn, even if he counters it or something else happens. Anyways, Crystal Dynamics says that the next adventure will, quote, unify the timelines, adding back the original Tomb Raider games somehow, or at some level, connecting to the reboot trilogy, which there was always hint that they were going to try and do that, and like, sure, you could remake the original Tomb Raider games with new graphics. The story is going to be a little wonky, for sure, if you tried to do that, because the original Tomb Raider game stories were a little weird. But you're gonna still have to create whole new levels. Like, the problem is that the original series of Tomb Raider, and people don't really remember this, is that you eventually end up in one game fighting like an Atlantean god, and you're fighting demons, and it's a whole bunch of nonsense. So it's more nonsensical than even the reboot series, which was somewhat comprehensible and believable, even though at the end of the first game you're fighting like a god of some sort. And that's fine. In Indiana Jones, you're dealing with gods in every single one of those movies too. Some god of something, or aliens in the fourth movie, I guess. It's going to come down to presentation. But the actual Tomb Raider games were very big tombs, and so they're going to have to put a lot of polish and a lot of effort to make very big tombs, or they're going to have to reuse a lot of visual assets, which is going to make the games look less polished. This is another indication of maybe trouble more than you would think. Video Games Chronicles has an article here. The Days Gone director Jeff Ross has joined Tomb Raider studio Crystal Dynamics. He was a former PlayStation veteran. He's now the design director at Square Enix studio. It's worth pointing out, yeah, it's really hard to have a lot of faith in Tomb Raider when you know it's Square Enix is the parent company of Crystal Dynamics, the makers of Tomb Raider. So very possibly Square Enix is not going to give enough funding or enough time to make a good Tomb Raider game ever, and then almost certainly Square Enix is going to come out and complain about it not selling that well. On top of which, Jeff Ross already shows that he was willing to burn bridges in some of his previous interviews, complaining about not getting enough support to make Days Gone, and complaining about the fact that Days Gone didn't really do that well. So you're really bringing on board a name that's wrapped in some controversy, or at least wrapped in the stench of failure. So I don't know if it really makes a lot of sense to hire this guy in the first place, let alone put out any information to say he is working for you. Like, you might hire him and just keep him quiet in the back room working. Moving on, Valve says it's ramping up Steam Deck shipments. We've not heard much about the Steam Deck in the past couple of weeks. People that got them did their first impressions, the lucky few, and then that's pretty much it. Like, there's not a lot of feeling that there's continued excitement for the Steam Deck. Which is fine, I suppose, as long as it's just maybe going to be more of a case of slow progress as more games become more compatible. I imagine there won't be any way to make new announcements. We're back to gold now, or new improvements. And yeah, I would lean towards saving your money towards a Switch 2 and compare that to the current Steam Deck, or saving your money towards a Steam Deck 2, which you can expect there to be upgraded versions if Valve continues to support the Steam Deck. It would make a lot of sense a year from now for there to be a Steam Deck 2. It would make a lot of sense since it is more like a computer that you would just every 6 months potentially have upgraded versions of it. But yeah, any excitement I would have had for the Steam Deck at this point has subsided. There is a desktop version of Emulation Station that they're targeting and making images for, so you can get Emulation Station and emulators through the Emulation Station front end for Steam Deck, which is nice because that means you're not going to have to potentially go to like installing a whole different operating system, and instead you're just installing an application. But there's not a ton of space on the Steam Deck, so you could you're still not. The Steam Deck with Emulation Station is a major improvement compared to like a Raspberry Pi 4 with Emulation Station and RetroPie installed. Sure, I'll grant you that. It's maybe not even that much of a major improvement because you probably are only making a difference of being able to play PlayStation 2 games and maybe Wii games on the Steam Deck, which I assume the Raspberry Pi 4 can't handle that. But yeah, it probably isn't even Wii games. It's probably Nintendo GameCube games would be the next generation after the Nintendo 64. So yeah, the Steam Deck with Emulation Station is an improvement there, plus the Steam Deck's ability to play some of the games on Steam, even though they pretend like it's a lot more than they really can. It's not anywhere as good though as having a $1,200 to $2,000 gaming PC. Like, if you can get a 2080 or even a 1080 graphics card and a decent Intel or AMD CPU, you're gonna blow the Steam Deck out of the water. And hard drive space, and you can easily get 12 to 18 terabytes of space if you need it for your massive complete collection of ROMs if you were going to go that route. Sure, a gaming PC is not portable, but then you could maybe stream games. I don't know if you can stream everything. No, I bet you can't like Steam Link stream something through Emulation Station to a Steam Deck. That would be, I guess, the next innovation you would hope to see developed. Alright, let's do this. Let's see. I'm getting wrecked here. I really should have crafted max Cs. There's like no reason not to have 3 of these in every single deck you play. Moving on, The Last of Us Part 2 actor teases an epic new motion capture project. Actor Derek Phillips played Abby's dad in the Naughty Dog game. It's really weird to report on somebody hyping themselves up or hyping up their next project as a game like motion capture actor. Although, in all fairness, what was I just complaining about earlier in this stream? That there isn't that much video game news. One great way to potentially get more video game news would be to follow the actors and the voice actors and the motion capture actors and realize that whatever they're tweeting out might be of interest to people. I don't know if it really is of interest to people, but it probably should be. Moving on, some new Starfield videos introduce a robot companion called Vasco. Starfield video. So here you have the 30-second trailer. This is just live action footage. People sitting around the table. Yep. So which is safer, I wonder? There's Todd Howard, I believe. Is it safer for everybody to face one direction? Or... yeah, probably is. Probably a lot safer for everybody to face in one direction and not be spinning on each other. Like, even before the pandemic, there was plenty of times where people have spit across the table at me personally, and I've noticed it. So they just have this, they're just having this round table chat talking about Starfield, and the actual screenshots they're showing are few and far between. Little concept shots that have been colored in. Is that the robot they're talking about? Yeah, I definitely question how far Starfield really has been developed if the vast majority of this 5-minute presentation is just people talking and these still images being Photoshop tricked into looking like moving images. This game feels like it should be a lot further along. One of the guys has a Skyrim shirt. You can see here they're showing footage of a Elder Scrolls game from a long time ago. Here you can see the Skyrim logo. That is not exciting by any means. That is definitely not exciting. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says Ubisoft is developing a new third-person shooter IP. It's claimed the game will reportedly feature class-based combat and a Destiny-like tower. Yeah, it's believable that those types of Overwatch / Destiny games are, I guess it would be a Destiny game if they're calling it a Destiny-like game. I bet a lot of people are working on projects like that just to potentially always have something in their back pocket if something like Destiny stops becoming popular. Although, in all fairness, I personally think Destiny has already stopped being mostly popular, and a new Destiny competitor isn't going to move the audience to the same type of game. Honestly, I think the only reason why Destiny's is as popular as it is because people jumped from Halo to Destiny because Bungie worked on Halo and Destiny. And I can't help but feel like there's a decent thought that a certain percentage of players and gamers, the gamer bros in particular, that Microsoft brought to the table and got to play their first games, the Halo 1 for instance. I wouldn't be surprised if that audience has been pretty cohesive in where they have jumped from game to game. And while it would be nice to bring that audience to your game, it is probably more luck than anything else that moves that audience from one game to the next game. And I kind of do feel like there is probably a through line of an audience that played Halo, then Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 4, maybe around Halo 4 they jumped over to Destiny 1 and then jumped over to Destiny 2. I also feel like there's probably a through line of people who have played World of Warcraft, which maybe they came from EverQuest or something else before World of Warcraft and then went to World of Warcraft and then pretty much stuck at World of Warcraft for the rest of their lives. Maybe some of those have jumped over and splintered into Elder Scrolls Online, but I bet a significant portion of people who are playing games like EverQuest and smaller, older World of Warcraft style games went to World of Warcraft. I cannot speak today at all, and have just stayed with it. Of course, that is definitely not how I play games personally. I play a game, get bored with it fairly quickly, and move on to the next thing, jump around. I do stick with general categories of games. There definitely are some kinds of games I haven't touched or would just never touch. But yeah, I jump around. Unless, of course, you're talking about collectible card games, which I've committed more than I normally would have as far as playing some kind of collectible card game every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. At a certain level, though, I kind of wonder if the whole live streaming is just not even beneficial to YouTube channels anymore. They definitely don't feel like they're promoting the idea of live streaming as much anymore. I'm not seeing a lot of people live streaming or promoting it on their channels anymore. Moving on, Video Games Chronicles says the Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman has acquired almost all of SNK, which I don't know if this is because he just really loves SNK games or sees them as a good investment, or if it is just a way in which he can try and control what SNK does as far as what kind of games get made and released. In a lot of ways, like the Fatal Fury, Metal Slug, and King of Fighters company probably has very little to do with Saudi's Crown Prince. So probably it is just an investment or a money laundering thing. There's a lot of controversy certainly around the Crown Prince, considering he is said to have approved the capture or killing of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. He was killed, horrifically tortured and killed. So, a lot of controversy there, and as much as I say don't do business with China, don't do business with the Middle East either. And it honestly probably has very little to do with, like, immediately people will claim it's because of Islam or their religion, and that's why you're criticizing them. But it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's the Middle East economically was manipulated by the United States and the West for oil, that to be able to manipulate and control things, they allowed and promoted bad people to become the oligarchs of that region, and now these princes and kings and leaders are just really bad people with a lot of money and a lot of power, and so now they are doing bad things and using their money and power to do bad things. The average citizen in Saudi Arabia may not be doing terrible, but they probably aren't doing as good as they should, considering the land was so rich with oil, and that has just been siphoned out. And there definitely were some ways in some of the Middle Eastern countries in which they would send paychecks to people because of the oil, and then those paychecks sometimes get smaller or disappear, or they were discounting the price of gasoline to go from one place to another, and then those discounts started to disappear. Same in the way as far as the United States had stimulus checks for a while, and then they stopped doing the stimulus checks far too early, or there would definitely have been times where unemployment on the federal level has not been funded, and so somebody is on unemployment, they're expecting to potentially be protected and be able to look for a job for 6 months, and then that gets canceled down on the federal level, and then it runs out. Yeah. So, yeah, bad leaders are not people you can really do business with. I think people are seeing that with Russia at the moment too, is that you just cannot do business with us. As much as this whole free trade movement was pushed, like we should at this point see a complete death of the idea of pushing free trade. Like, it just does not work as a concept. It has caused many countries to compromise their morals, compromise their own laws, to then have these international treaties and these international copyright laws. There definitely was a point there where they were literally just going to try and make treaties with the United States and other countries to make something like SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, pass without requiring the Senate or the Congress to actually vote for it, which that's giving up your sovereignty in favor of big businesses and oligarchs making more money. Really, a lot of problems around the world would be solved if there were just maximums on the amount of money somebody could have. It is ridiculous, to get back to this story, that a single crown prince has an investment that is pretty much a entire foundation that is pretty much just there to handle one person's money, and that there is so much money there that they can own or buy out a Japanese company. I'd also say it is subjective, but I would feel like a lot of the Middle East is wasting a lot of money making rich $1 million rooms in hotels instead of actually improving the countries, or just building roads and building housing that would be appropriate for its average citizens. Particularly if you're in the Middle East, you have the constant problem of not having enough water and it being incredibly hot, and with global climate change, that potentially being such a big deal that it's going to be unlivably hot in those regions. So if I was somehow made the person in charge of a Middle Eastern country, I would immediately start to say, okay, we got to figure out how to deal with the heat. It probably would require massive cities underground. The good news there, though, is that any Middle Eastern country probably has a lot of sand that you could dig into fairly easily, and if you built a dome city, it wouldn't need to be glass actually, because it's just going to be buried anyways. You could then let the sand blow back over it. You definitely would have to get, I'd say, at least minimum 11 feet, if not a lot deeper underground to get at a stable temperature. It may still be very, very hot even deep down, but stable temperatures are about as good as you're going to get there. Immediately, if you are going to build these giant, like, domed cities, you're going to have to build tunnels and ventilation and things like that to get in fresh air. You're going to have to build your own biodome. If you can build a biodome, you could probably have something like a rainforest in a city underground. You could definitely put up tons of solar fields, solar panels, or actually you probably just want to go with the old-fashioned technology of solar reflectors going to a tower of salt that you melt and run through a generator and create steam to make power that way. Or you just go full nuclear and have nuclear plants. But yeah, underground kind of attempt to make your own biodome, tropical rainforest area, domed cities, attempt to connect everything that way. That would be what you would go for. You would want to go with a heavy amount of city planning and nice, spacious but realistic apartments for all your citizens. Yeah, there's no reason to try to build the tallest tower in the world, for instance, in the Middle East, or anywhere, frankly. That is just arrogance. Those tall buildings are expensive, they fall over, and they are not designed for anybody poor. Or building your own custom islands for more beach space to sell and rent out is ridiculous. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling, but so let's move on. The UK retailer Simply Games, never heard of them, but it is a UK retailer, has refunded all pre-orders and appears to have ceased trading. The company has been silent since February. Now, retailer in my mind means they're kind of like an Amazon.com. So, it seems kind of odd that they just kind of went silent. Although you almost would expect that would happen more, frankly. That more companies would just go silent and hope nobody remembers that they existed. Apparently it was a publicly traded company, and that's what I assume what it means by trading. Moving on, Konami's eFootball has a update 1.0.0 arriving next week with the football-like Dream Team mode, or FUT-like Dream Team mode. I'm not making a lot of progress today. I'm going fairly slow. Horizon Forbidden West patches 1.11 is now available, including bug fixes and progression blocking bugs, which, yeah, again, I have not heard a lot of enthusiasm around Horizon Forbidden West since it's come out. Let's see. Just special summon that, I guess. Let's see, Video Games Chronicles has an article here. The Lego Skywalker Saga has smashed Lego's Steam user record by 12,000%, or 1,200%, let me read that correctly, which this may be an indicator that the Lego fan base, or the original generation of Lego fan base, has just grown up and moved to PC gaming compared to playing it on something like the Switch, or in the old days you probably would have played some of these Lego games on even like the Game Boy DS. There were a couple of versions of those games. Might as well activate that feature, that trap, just for rewards. But yeah, that's still big numbers. You can't dismiss that, to say that 12 times as many people were willing to play this on Steam. The last previous record holder was Lego Marvel Superheroes, which, okay, that makes some sense. That's a good Lego game also, and a fairly recent one. What I'd love to see is that this number here excites TT Games and Warner Brothers parent company enough that we start to see maybe some patches or continued remakes on some of the other series, and that we just continuously get more Lego games or better Lego games, particularly on PC. Because remember, there's like the Lego Hobbit DLC never even came to PC. They didn't even care to finish it, and there's definitely been problems around the older Lego games. It is a little bit more shocking than it probably should be that the Lego games are selling as well as they are. The Lego Skywalker Saga is selling as well as it is. A concurrent peak here of 82,000 using Steam DB probably isn't the greatest indicator of whether that means they sold 300,000 units already or 100,000 units. It does tell us that it couldn't be below 82,000 units, but it's probably closer to 160 minimum as far as sales. Of course, using that as a metric is not perhaps the best metric to ever have, because there's not really a lot of people that are going to be playing any kind of online co-op or player versus player features in LEGO games, because those things don't exist. Like, even if this new game did have an online co-op mode, I doubt very many people would engage with that. LEGO games have always been couch co-op split screens. So yeah, there's a big number, but I would much prefer to see the sales number of this game versus the sales numbers of these other games, because I wouldn't be surprised if all the numbers as far as sales in each of these games are fairly similar. Like, concurrent players only really make sense when you have multiplayer functions. Like, and the only multiplayer function game, LEGO game, is LEGO Worlds, and that was awful, so obviously don't compare it to that. Moving on, the FTC's probe of Microsoft Activision's acquisition will reportedly focus on consumer data and the labor market. The deal is expected to close in the fiscal year of 2023. Still, however, like, we'd really have to get some major indications from the FTC that something was awry to suspect that this won't go through. The game 2 Points Campus has been delayed 3 months, which I'm sure for the small fan base of the 2 Points series, that's probably disappointing. Let's see. THQ Nordic has announced a digital showcase for August. It will feature announcements and updates about THQ Nordic games currently in development. Which, it's funny that they're doing it specifically for THQ Nordic and not just the Embracer Group, the parent company, completely. They say they're going to present several brand new games expanding on the company's portfolio in new genres with both licensed and original gaming experiences, which I don't think we've seen a lot of original games from the new THQ. And then currently in development they have Outcast 2, A New Beginning, and Jagged Alliance 3. I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least the beginning of a hint at I don't know why I won there, but okay, I'll take that victory. Darksiders 4, like, they need to hint that that's in development and that they're really finally willing to wrap up the Darksiders universe, because it's been a long, somewhat bumpy journey as far as the Darksiders series, and if they don't finish the games series, it's going to be harder to sell potentially the older games. And the story has been leading up to a big conclusion as far as the Darksiders series, and it deserves to wrap up. Let's see. Video Games Chronicle's final article for today says, following Breakpoint's final update, the next Ghost Recon is reportedly not that far off. Which, okay, take that for whatever it is. Like, I definitely can feel that I'm losing steam. I don't think I've seen this card before. As a big guy. And then that brings us to the Gemetsu articles, which one of these days I'll get around to reprogramming it so that we don't have so many redundant articles that we've already talked about. Because, yeah, this is all stuff we've talked about. Maybe we haven't talked about this one, City Connection to re-release Akai Katana. I don't know what Akai Katana is, though. They're going to release it in 2022. Let's see if this works. If he cancels that, I'm doomed. Yep. Let's see, Layer Section and Galactic Attack S Tribute has been announced for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. This looks like a shoot 'em up game. Yep. Let's see, some Japanese game releases. I think we've already talked about that. Crest establishing a all-ages visual novel brand. We talked about that. It being remade and launched on April 19th. We talked about 7 Pirates H launching May 12th in the West. We talked about that. Nobody Saves the World coming to PS4, PS5, and Switch on April 14th. Let's see. We already covered PlayStation Now, adding Journey to the Savage Planet, Outer Wilds, Werewolf the Apocalypse, and WRC 10 in April. And then we already talked about Monkey Island. A narrative RPG called Citizen Sleeper launches May 5th on Xbox Series, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Noticeably missing is the PlayStation series of consoles. It says it's an RPG game, but feels a little awkward. It's kind of a unique art style there. That art style is very reminiscent of something you would expect from like a 90s anime in space. Definitely far away from the moe art style that is so vastly prevalent. Let's see, the game Lake is coming to PS5 and PS4 on April 8th. I believe this is a game where you are sitting around and just talking. They're calling it an adventure game. I think this is the game where you actually are a post person and delivering postage. Postal. It is on my wish list. Fairly late, though. Fairly late in the party to be releasing it on PlayStation if it came out September 1st, 2021 on PC. Brigadine, the Legend of Runesaria is coming to PC on May 11th, which looks like it's probably a JRPG. Maybe a hex grid positional placement JRPG. Looks like it's got a lot of characters and a lot of story to it. It may be a little bit overwhelming for me as a strategy RPG is what they're calling it. A Made in Abyss game called Binary Star Falling into Darkness launches this fall, and they have a debut trailer here. Some awkward nipples being in shadow depicted here on this robot kid. Made in Abyss is a lot more horrific and gory than you would think looking at this cutesy art style. as a story. It definitely caught people's attention as a manga and as an anime. But I'm not sure it is really best suited in having video games made of it. Like, there's definitely going to be some weirdness here. These characters, I think these two characters might be new characters. I don't know otherwise what they would be related to. It's being rated 0Z as far as the trailer, I think, which 0Z I believe is the adults only rating. I wouldn't be surprised if the entire game is rated 0Z. Yeah. I kind of want to know who's the company behind it, because more than likely this is like a Capcom or Square Enix or Bandai. I'd suspect maybe Bandai, where they own the anime and thus they're making a game based on the animes they already own. Yeah, you can see how bloody and horrific some of the death sequences are. Let's see. Spike Chunsoft, actually. So I wonder if they have the rights to the anime also, and that's why this kind of cross promotion would even start to make sense. I would have to assume that this Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid game is also a Spike Chunsoft event. That would... No, this is Access Games, it sounds like. But yeah, I guess they're just gonna try and have more anime experiences, anime games come out. It's been a while, certainly. It's been long enough since the last anime game came out that was worth mentioning. And I guess they have to try something. Alright, special summon this one, and then this one. Put this one face up. Let's see. If this wrecks his strategy, I've won. If it doesn't wreck his strategy, then I've lost. Moving on, Komatsu says the House of the Dead remake for PS4 has appeared in the PlayStation Network's backend, which I guess the question may have been, was the House of the Dead remake going to be announced only as a PlayStation 5 exclusive? It'd be kind of weird to make a remake an exclusive. We'd already talked about these new games for Xbox Game Pass, so we don't need to talk about it again. A game called Trek to Yomi launches May 5th, and they have a trailer here if you want to check that out. This is way too powerful. A Puzzle Bobble 3D Vacation Odyssey Physical Edition has been announced, if that interests you. Hypnospace spiritual sequel, Dream Settler, has been announced for consoles and PC. I have no idea what Hypnospace is, though. So, let's see if we can click on that link and see what that does. Just go ahead and end our turn. That just brought up Dream Settler, which this is kind of like this weird fake internet. I heard of a game like this, and that may be what Hypnospace was. I don't know if I ever really decided that I actually wanted to play Hypnospace. Let's see. Hypnospace Outlaw is on the wish list. So it did make it. You can definitely tell though that it is a weird looking game. Also, apparently a Hypnospace first person shooter, Slayer X Terminal Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer, has been announced for consoles and PC. Which definitely seems like they are going in a different direction there, making kind of like a Doom clone. In a funny way, this may just push me in the direction of not bothering to play any of the games. If there turns out to be like 4 or 5 different styles of games that come out in the same genre. Yeah, go ahead and send that to the graveyard. What do I care? We had already talked about a new Tomb Raider title in development on Unreal Engine. This is once again, I guess this might be concept art of Lara Croft, but boy does this not really feel like Lara Croft with the bow and arrow and just busted lip and messed up hair and what looks like snow outfits. See, we have like 46 seconds of video here. Do they show me anything during this trailer that's blurred out? Nope, it is 46 seconds of just talking. Nothing there. A game called My Time at Sandrock for PC launches in early access on May 26th. Which, yeah, looks like another Stardew Valley type game, although a little bit better visually polished, and maybe there's enough more Minecraft style gameplay in it and other things to do that there's less of an emphasis potentially on potentially of just farming, because it is really the farming stuff that kills me more than anything as far as those types of games, as far as it kills my interest in them. Let's see, here we have a game called Graduator, which looks like it's probably a Chinese platforming game where you're rolling on a unicycle for some reason. There's a lot of screenshots here just showing like little cutscenes, and instead of showing the gameplay. It's Korean only, not Chinese. I was wrong. But yeah, that's gotta go. Let's go through some of the games and try and burn through them very quickly. I'm starting to wear out my throat. Here we have one called the Ghostly Rose, which just looks like an RPG Maker. I have been eating the Fisherman's Friends cough drops that are like a massive amount of menthol in them. I've been eating them kind of more like candy than actually needing to eat them. But I do think it's probably helped a little bit. Fishing Kingdom here looks too much like a slot machine for its own good. It's free with in-app purchases. It's an MMO. It's probably Chinese. Shadow Fate looks like an RPG game. Doesn't look terrible as an RPG game, but I don't think I'd ever say yes to a 8-bit looking JRPG. There's just so much lack of interest there and competition there. I maybe played the original Final Fantasy games, and that's about it. And even that would be a major time commitment. Here we have a game called Systems Purge, which looks like a very high-paced precision platforming game. So yeah, I'd have to say no to that too. Its character looks weird too. It's like a witch or wizard in a pink outfit, jumping around a place full of traps and spikes, and visually that just doesn't make a lot of sense. You'd expect a witch or a wizard to be in more of a magical environment instead of what looks more just like kind of a Metroid environment of technology. Here we have a game called Dogfight Time, which I'll put that on the fall list so I don't have to consider it any further. I am getting down to the point where I'm doing that a lot, though, where I'm just actively, intentionally not spending time on thinking of considering the games. Mystery Solitaire Grim Tales 5 obviously is going to be a no. Easter Bunny. There's not a lot of Easter games. It's kind of hard to make an Easter game. This feels like this one's a stealth game. Not the worst concept, but not particularly a great concept either. Here we have one called Healing Simulator, which looks like garbage. Yeah, the problem with making an Easter game is that you basically have to make it based around the Easter Bunny. You can't make it around like the death and resurrection of Christ. This looks like garbage. Well, you could, but it'd probably not go down well if you did. So, if you were going to make a game based on the Easter Bunny, then why not just make a game based on bunnies in general? And if you're going to make a game based on cutesy animals, why not just make a game based on cats or dogs? Here we have a 4X game called Archine Realms of War. Seems like it's somewhat card-based too. It also feels like it's probably a free-to-play MMO with in-app purchases. Yeah, that's definitely the feeling of it. There's a lot of promising going on here with these visuals, and the only way that there would be real content behind those promises is if you're constantly getting an influx of income. Here we have a game called Aohana, which is just a Japanese girl jigsaw puzzle. All the screenshots showing just this one character, so I suspect that's the only puzzle. Here we have one called Maya Star, which is just far too purple. Yep. I don't know why you would make your color palette just different shades of purple. It's pretty silly. Letterbender. Spelling puzzle game. So do all these pluses and minuses potentially let you change? Like, does A plus 1 equal B? Is that the idea? A single screen Unity game like this makes it fairly hard to pull off something like this, but make a puzzle game like that, or understand how the puzzle game works. Yeah, it does seem like you click these to change the letters into something else. But then what does the arrows do? Yeah, I'm somewhat intrigued there, so I'll give this a follow and see what other people have to say about it. Here we have a game called Fanite, which I don't think looks like much. So I'm gonna say no to that also. Alright, and we've been going 2 hours and 12 minutes, so I think that's good enough to stop playing and just focus on the news. We've done a pretty great job today, I think, doing the daily quests. We've gotten up to rank gold, rank 5 of gold, which is where we probably deserve to be, and I'm not suspecting that I'll make it any further. Like, maybe I can get to rank 4 gold, maybe even rank 3, but I'm not expecting, without a better deck, to make it all the way up to platinum, which is the next place I would need to reach before the season ended. And that got everything except for the solo mode done, and bumped us up in gyms quite a bit too. And then we'll just receive all, and we're already at 31 of 100 on the dual pass. Definitely feels like the dual pass is not designed for people who play as much as would be needed to play to get the daily quests done. I guess it is also worth pointing out that all the secret packs ended with no fanfare. Let's see. Let's see, AI the Somnium Files. Nirvana Initiative has a gameplay trailer. Oh, you really don't have time to watch this. Though, interesting that you have 2 characters in hot dog suits. You have one character here in fairly short shorts. Rated M for mature. What was the actual gameplay, though? I'm seeing a lot of dialogue and text. Is that all there is? If this is supposed to be the gameplay trailer, it makes me really worried that this game Does not really have a gameplay mechanic. Let's see, what is this tagged as? A visual novel. Okay. Yeah. That's a lot more action than you normally would see in a visual novel, but to have a gameplay trailer around the visual novel is fairly odd. That being said, as a visual novel, if you're going to put it in that category, it may be pretty good because there may be fully voice acted lines of dialogue, and there may be a lot of action happening there anyways. So, of potential visual novels, there may be a real reason to give that game a second look. Famitsu has its reviews this week. Battle Spirits Connected Battlers getting 28 out of 40. Strangers in Paradise Final Fantasy Origins 33 out of 40. Wife Quest, which haven't even heard of this game, 29 out of 40. And Winning Post 9, 32 out of 40. So no big name titles this week, nor particularly well reviewed games. A game called Fragments Note Plus has been announced for Switch. This looks to me like it is maybe a collection of visual novels instead of just one, which it certainly is an interesting question. Like, if you're going to sell old visual novels, and there's a whole series of them, can you sell them as a bundle cheaply, or are the visual novel publishers going to demand that you charge a maximum $60 to $100, maybe in Japan, for each and every volume? Moving on, Metal Dogs for PS4 and Switch has a launch trailer and screenshots, which that definitely looks weird as far as Metal Dogs, but I don't know if that's really a game I would want to play. Or I think they're trying to be kind of just silly, do a little bit of memeing even. Focus Entertainment is going to publish a puzzle adventure game called Chance of Sonar, which, okay, I don't have a lot to see here so far. Looks like it might be pretty. Might be a game that focuses around trying to figure out the language of the universe you're in. A game called Liberated Enhanced Edition is coming to Xbox PS4, Xbox Series PS4, and Xbox One on April 20th. What kind of game is that? Calling it an action adventure game. Is this that comic book game? Yeah. It feels like you're playing a Comic Zone inspired game. We already talked about the THQ Digital Showcase for August 12th, so I don't think we need to talk about that again. Yuru Kill, the Culmination Games, has a story trailer if you want to check that out. Although, interesting, this says it has a trailer, and yet there is no trailer showing up. So, I have no idea what is blocking that from showing up. Yeah, weird. I think they just messed up and didn't put the video there. That'd be my assumption. Either that or Gamatsu is now also running ads in some weird way that is getting blocked by my ad blocking setup on my router. I feel like this might be a little too late, even though there's still a lot of chance for another Dune movie. But the first Dune movie has come out and pretty much been a decent success, but they're not still watching it or talking about it now. So it's very late for Dune Spice Wars to launch in early access on April 26th. Like, perhaps the goal will be to release Spice Wars out of early access by the time the next Dune movie comes out, assuming another Dune movie comes out. But yeah, you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket there. Then we already talked about 2 Points Campus being delayed, so we don't need to touch that again. This game, no angler fish, looks like nothing of interest. 99 cents, English only. Okay, we have a game called Islands of the Ancients, which both looks like it might be an asset flip and actually looks kind of nice. $11.69 is single player, English, allegedly full audio. I cannot dismiss this, even though it definitely feels like there's some asset flips here and that this is trying to trick people into looking like a much better game than it probably is, but I can't immediately dismiss it. They've done at least a decent enough job with the trailer and the art aesthetic. Now, this may be a game that, even if it passed all the other requirements, might just be boring. Like, if you're just wandering around an island shooting things, that could be a fairly boring experience. But we'll see what other people have to say. We have a game called Clutter 12, It's About Time, which looks like it's a match 2 game. Of no interest. $11.04 is pretty expensive. Siege of the Abyss, Shadowbond's prologue is apparently a prologue for a visual novel. So, pretty much say no to free prologues always. And no difference here. Goldmine, Pickaxe 2, Mummy Tunes. Doesn't look like anything of interest. English and Russian. Yeah, we still are seeing some games that support English and Russian, but we are seeing considerably fewer English-Russian low-effort games. Crete Medium here looks like nothing of interest. It's French only. I think Frite is French for fries. So that would be medium fries. We can see very positive reviews for Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. If somebody wanted to friend me and gift me the deluxe edition, which I hope includes all the DLC, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll get around to buying it myself and playing it. You can see that the DLC here is fairly expensive. They're trying to hide it, but they really want $60 plus another $20. So games are getting more and more expensive. It is also certainly possible, though, and we have to remind ourselves that this may be the last hurrah for TT games. Like, Disney could pull out their license and stop doing business with them, and if they did, that would be the last of at least Lego Star Wars games, and Warner Brothers being sold off and merged or demerged, split off. Whatever is going on with Warner Brothers could finally just decide to stop funding Lego games. Although I don't know why they would do that, really. Here we have a game called The Living Remain, which just looks like it's a zombie shooter game of not enough polish. Looks like it might be a VR game too. $19.99 English only. As a VR game, it might be a little bit better than I initially thought, so I'm gonna give it a follow list. Like you have to hold VR games to a different standard, unfortunately, a lower standard. ODT, Escape or Die Trying. This looks like a really old game. So if you had told me that this was an old game being republished by Pico Interactive, which probably is exactly that, yeah, it would have been better. These release dates need to be rethought. There needs to be a option to list original launch dates or original release dates. I'm gonna put this on the fall list just in case there's some relevancy to this game, that like a whole bunch of other people played it and I just never heard of it. There's definitely a possibility. Here we go. A game that is literally tagged with mature shooter sexual content and nudity. Milk Bottle and Monster Girl 2. Now the actual game here kind of feels like you're just shooting / clicking on things that are floating over the screen of anime girls. But this is strange to say the least, because this is coming out for $1.59 right now, like on a Wednesday, when you would have expected that to be held off on a Friday. Did Valve finally change their habits, and are we going to now just randomly see an adult games coming out on the same time frame as other games? Any day of the week is valid, instead of hiding it every other Friday like they have been doing for 6 months. Well, I have to admit that I'm personally might have had some influence there. It's not likely, but I directly did contact Censored Gaming, which Censored Gaming as a YouTube channel has stopped making content. I think he's got like COVID or something, and so he's been really slow to make any new content. But I contacted him and pointed out that I had noticed this pattern. So if Censored Gaming had sought out some comment from Valve, and then Valve would have known that they had been caught, or Valve would have caught the employee that was doing that and changed the way they do things. That being said, we still, ever since we have started to notice a change there, we have seen slightly fewer adult games in general. So it might just be that they implemented a more strict system and just changed how they did things in general. We'll have to wait to see if companies start complaining about not being able to list games on Steam that they could have in the previous months. Moving on, we have VR air hockey. It's not a terrible thought, but visually this isn't the greatest air hockey game I've ever seen. 99 cents for a VR game is incredibly cheap. Here we have a game called The Elevator Game, which is in VR and doesn't look like it's particularly much of anything. So I'm going to say no to that. Here we have Strangest.io, My Megamix 21, which I'm going to say no to. I'm not willing to put things on the fall list just because they look incredibly weird. Maybe I've done that in the past, but yeah, weird is not enough. Here we have a game called The Drained Goddess, which is already mixed. First person survival horror game. I feel like I want to put this on the fall list even though there's really no reason to. It's already mixed. I'm gonna give it a chance. Gods of War Essa is a bullet hell shoot 'em up game. So, not my style of game. Tick. Looks like it's a low polygon horror game. So I think we'll say no to that. Lonely Night. Looks like just nothing of interest. Yeah. It definitely is a case where I'm not willing to give a game a chance if it looks like a Dark Souls game, but it's not published by a major AAA developer and publisher. That, like, a fantasy looking game that's trying to have that Dark Souls aesthetic, I would definitely say no to that. Also gonna say no to Hate's Offering. Because the screenshots are not really grabbing my attention. Really just looks asset flippy. Jump Phobia Homeward Bound. Looks like it's a platforming game, precision platformer. So I'm gonna say no to that. Yeah, for every precision platformer game out there, if they were all as visually polished as Mirror's Edge, then there might be something. There might be a lot more better games out there. Of course, that takes a lot of effort. This Heroes of the Dark almost looks like something I might consider. It's a free-to-play in-app purchase game. Like, if I was playing this on a cell phone, I definitely might consider it. Much like a gacha game or a cell phone game, there's just a ton of stuff happening on the screen. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different currencies. Looks like one of them is probably a stamina bar that runs out based on every action. Then you have a completely different gameplay style, completely different looking screen, completely different looking screen. It's just all over the place, it seems like. And this is probably the actual gameplay mechanic. But yeah, that's definitely going to be a no. That's too much. And that's a mobile phone type game. Blockinator looks like it's just a 3D Tetris with nothing special to it, so nope to that. And here we have Scary Wife HD anime horror game, which a title like that you can pretty much assume that it's more of a troll game than a finished product. Yeah. There's like a baby. Don't know why. So yeah. We haven't seen these kind of low effort anime waifu games, but it's just like Anime Girl Shooter 5. I haven't seen something like that in a while either. Police Response VR Disturbance looks like a joke troll game, so I'm gonna say no to that. Again, very cheap for a VR game. Outbreak Contagious Memories might be a decent shooter, zombie shooter. Like, you frankly would be fairly crazy to make a zombie game these days. There's just so much competition amongst good ones and so many bad games out there that you might as well just, if you want to make a zombie game, make something different. Like make your own kinds of monsters to attack instead of zombies. Make it visually look different. This game looks visually different, but doesn't look good. We have about 7 more games, and then the fall is cleanup. Split, manipulate time, make clones, solve cyber puzzles from the future. Is way too long of a title, which definitely makes me think it's not that good of a game. Frontier Forest. Looks like it might be a tower defense game. Yep. So no to that. Here we have the 5th game in the sinking structure, Cleon and the Lost Child, being released in as many weeks. See, I've only been going like 2 hours and 35 minutes, and I'm still fairly exhausted. Magnet Crusher here is not anything of interest. Yeah, I knew there was a chance, but I had hoped it wasn't going to happen, that I would be fairly exhausted by starting around noon. But yeah. Give me another week or two if everything stays on track, and I may be fully awake around noon all the way to 3 or 4 in the afternoon. This Sing Together as a VR karaoke game doesn't look visually polished enough. The idea is not bad though. Although, as a free-to-play game, I don't know how that you can make any money there, and how you get the music rights as a free game. We have a game called Crooks Like Us. Yeah. There's definitely a reason why karaoke bars are kind of expensive and charge money, is that making the karaoke videos and the music is not something that's automatically done, and it's not something like that's particularly in demand, so they have to charge a lot more to license a karaoke song than just buying a CD of a song. This Beast of Burden doesn't look like anything of interest. And then Vacancy Unlimited doesn't look like anything of interest. Let's see. GameDeveloper.com has an article here. Court's documents have shed light on the mysterious disappearance of Paranoia Happiness is Mandatory. The title looks to have been pulled from sale due to a dispute between the IP holders and the publisher of Big Ben Interactive, which I feel like Big Ben Interactive has been in disputes with some other people too. Like, but yeah, they're suing each other. If it's not Big Ben Interactive that I'm thinking of, there definitely has been at least one publisher that has been pretty awful. I feel like Frogwares was involved with one of those disputes, but I'd really have to look up the article to know for sure. Of course, I'm complaining about being low energy and asleep, half asleep, but oops, just dropped my mouse. 1 sec. But yeah, if I wasn't using my recliner to recline back, I probably would be a little bit more alert. Okay, where's the mouse cursor? There it is. The Roblox CEO will earn over $230 million by 2028 if the share prices rocket, which it feels like an incredibly speculative statement to make. Like, I don't know why you would even say that. I guess what they're trying to say here is the CEO will need to raise the share prices to $375 to receive that amount. That seems like a ridiculously expensive price for a share. One share, $375? No, you wouldn't ever trade at that scale. You would do stock splits and keep it closer to $30-$40. I half want to go look up what a share of Apple stock is. Let's see. Let me see if I can type that in and figure it out. Apple share price. Yeah. Apple right now sells at $171.72 for a share. So Roblox would have to trade at over double what an Apple share trades at. That just does not make any sense at all. And more than likely GameDeveloper.com is just pointing out that in his contract they have scenarios where he could get a bonus. The Roblox CEO could get a bonus if he managed to pull off a miracle like that. Of course, I could have also looked up Roblox share price, but I don't really care enough to even look that up, because it might be a case that Roblox is already trading at $300 for some insane reason, and if that was the case, then, well, that may be a different issue. It may not be that hard. We had already talked about the Unreal Engine 5 having an officially launched, so we don't need to talk about that again. Let's see. Apparently Ubisoft has no plans for future Tom Clancy Ghost Recon Breakpoint updates, which I think we had kind of touched on that, maybe not said it as bluntly. The Pokemon Go developer Niantic has acquired the AR studio NZXR. That's probably a good thing, but on a certain level, I think Niantic has rested on its laurels too much, and they have failed to have much more success after Pokemon Go, which was a major success. So, like, their first two games, which are basically the same game, have done well, but I don't think their third game or any future game they make has a decent chance of succeeding. Super Bloom has netted $3 million to create diverse lifestyles aimed at women. Mobile Studio was founded by former EA, Glue, and Dots veterans. I don't even recognize Glue and Dots as companies. So they're going to focus on building modernized lifestyle mobile games for women. We probably need something like that, but that doesn't sound appealing when you describe it that way. Ubisoft has assured NFT owners that they made history after ending the active development on Breakpoint. So more of the story certainly comes out that the NFTs in Breakpoint now potentially don't have a lot of use. Not that NFTs ever would have had much use. Hey, well, here we have a match 3 adult game called Redestiny. Doesn't look terrible. It's an adult game, so I really couldn't cover it, but I'll put that on the wish list. We're doing the fall list cleanup. This came out January as an RC racing game. I'll give it some more time. This one's mixed Raise the Dead. Nice pun, but people didn't like it well enough, so that leaves the fall list. Ravenland, people don't like, so that leaves the fall list. Yeah, I often feel like I'm being fairly negative talking about video game news and video games, but if you start to follow the general reviews of a lot of games, and there's legitimate reason to be so negative. A lot of these games are not well received and not that good. Let's see, Raptor Boyfriend High School Romance is positive though, for the silliness of it, I'm sure. So I'll put that on the wish list. Rapid Fire has 95% positive, but only 24 reviews. It's also a VR game that's free to play, so I'll leave that on the follow list. And then this is another Rangers Hot first-person VR shooter game. Still early access from March 2021. I'll give it more time. Ranch Simulator is rated very positively. I'm not sure this really is a game I want to play, and it's still early access, so that gives me more time to think about it. I almost would prefer there to be a narrative story where you happen to be a rancher and you have to do a few quests to make your ranch succeed, but then it moves into more of an experience after that, instead of that being a main focus. Ramen or Jail here still needs some more time. And then Rainbow Dreams came out in 2020 as a visual novel, and I think we have to say no to this because there's just only one review and it's not particularly positive from the looks of it. Alright, well, that's the follow list cleanup. Let me just scroll through my Twitter feed and see if there's any new bits of news that needs to be mentioned. Otherwise, I'll leave the unimportant stuff for Friday. Yeah, it doesn't seem like too much really is going to happen. NIS America is still pushing their game Crystar, which I guess maybe that is a bigger game than I thought. Let's see, Platinum Games. We can show off of that post. Not that it's particularly that important of a post. This is interesting. The ESA has congratulated Keithy Vidal being unanimously confirmed by the U.S. Senate as the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So that she would be the person that the ESA is going to deal with, certainly to try and maintain copyrights and be able to DMCA people. And so clearly they're happy with who got put in charge as a lobbyist group. But we don't see a lot of that really, as far as like the ESA specifically talking about politicians. VGC says new figures released by Twitter show that Sony's acquisition of Bungie generated more discussion than Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard on the platform. Which, in all fairness, I guess that makes a lot of sense, because Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard was at a point where people were already tired of talking about Activision Blizzard. Nobody saw the acquisition of Bungie by Sony coming, and frankly, I've forgotten that Sony did acquire Bungie. Apparently, there was a canceled Deus Ex movie, and the script has been leaked out, which sounds slightly interesting, but not enough that I'd really click on the article and read it. Deus Ex, even as a TV series or as a video game series, is not particularly well polished as a story. Between three very separated experiences, since the original Deus Ex game is so old, and Human Revolution being very different than the original Deus Ex, and then Mankind Divided being kind of forgotten by most people. Yeah, I haven't even gotten around to playing Mankind Divided still. I may very well own the game and just have kind of forgotten it. Yeah, that's very much the possibility. I should check on that and see if I even own Mankind Divided, because I could play that at any time. Yeah. So the shocking 10 announcements of 9 new titles from Platinum Games still is pinned here as a March 31st article, which was probably April Fool's Day in Japan at the time. But they didn't take it down, so there's some possibility of that being true. And then they put out here, cherry blossoms represent a new beginning. We welcome some new faces here at Platinum Game in April, and we're all looking forward to working together and continuing to make more Platinum quality games. It's a very kind of standard business post you'd expect internally to be put out, not really on a Twitter feed, particularly a Twitter feed of Platinum Games. But Platinum Games does seem to do things a little bit more business-like half the time than most video game Twitter feeds, or video game companies with Twitter feeds. Alright, well, I can happily report having made some tweaks, changed the cord. I didn't see my monitor flip out at all, my third monitor, whereas the bottom half of it was sometimes not rendering. My computer isn't beeping at me as far as I can hear. It's not overheating because I turned on the air conditioner. We don't have any frame drops due to rendering lag, not a single one. We don't have any frame drops due to network, not a single one. I mean, you could not really ask for anything better as far as this stream. So maybe everything's fine, or maybe by this time next Friday I'll be complaining about my computer totally broken again. We just need to have a prolonged period of nothing going wrong, is starting now, to prove to me that there isn't a possibility of something getting worse. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.